Yeah, so remember last week when I said that 2021 could be even worse than 2020? Hi everyone, I'm Luna. Welcome to the Lunarium. I don't know about you, but I've been pretty freaked out ever since the attempted insurrection that took place on the 6th at the Capitol. What happened on Wednesday was an attempt to circumvent democracy. It was an act of insurrection. It wasn't just a protest or a riot, like many media outlets continue to say. I wanted to film this video for days and I keep putting it off because I don't feel like I can be eloquent about this topic. I'm scared and I'm really, really angry. And I'm disgusted at the amount of people who have spent the last 5 days calling for forgiveness and unity, saying that impeaching Trump again would just divide the nation even more. And I literally don't understand how the day after an attempted coup that put the lives of every person at the Capitol in danger, how Congress can just go on recess. And yeah, it does seem like there are plans to move forward with articles of impeachment, but I don't understand how it's taking so long. Literally, Twitter has been doing more to prevent Trump from causing damage to this country than our elected representatives have, than our government is. It's absurd. It's even more absurd that hours after they were huddling for their life, many of them refusing to wear masks while in close quarters with everyone in Congress, that some Republicans still voted to overturn the results of a legitimate democratic election. I don't even know what to do with that information, what that says about how strongly Trumpism is dictating the movements of the Republican Party. I woke up really late on Wednesday to a text from my sister saying Trump supporters have broken into the Capitol, and I literally spent the rest of the day glued to the news and Twitter. I did nothing else all day. Judging by the other tweets that I saw on Twitter, I think many Americans were feeling a lot of the same emotions that I was, which was shock, dismay, rage, fear, confusion. There's so much that I want to say about this, about why I'm angry, why I'm afraid, why I'm disturbed. I feel like a lot of wiser people with bigger platforms and a lot more education have already said so much of what I would say. I still feel like I need to say a few things though, even though they've been said by better minds. It is absolutely appalling to me that the party of law and order, the party that has spent all year saying that if Black people don't want to get murdered, then they shouldn't break the law, or that if protesters don't want to be assaulted by police, then they shouldn't use their First Amendment rights, or not in ways that they deem unacceptable. The party that treats American symbolism like it's a religion, that party is trying to wipe clean the events of an attempted coup, where the Confederate flag was carried inside the Capitol, something that didn't even happen during the Civil War. Awful, disgusting things were on display on Wednesday, including the monster wearing that Camp Auschwitz shirt. The classism and racism that was on display is absolutely disgusting. From Anderson Cooper's, they're gonna go back to their Holiday Inn and go eat at Olive Garden or whatever he said, to all of the people saying this isn't a banana republic, this is the United States, or this isn't a third world country. How dare you? You can't find a way to say that you're horrified by the events of Wednesday without shitting on countries, many of whom have political violence because of meddling from the US? Are you serious? How appalling it is. How much authoritarian violence was on display all year by police, how much it was celebrated by the right for people literally just trying to argue that Black people should have rights and get to live. That's it. I'm really afraid of how already we're seeing attempts to just sweep what happened under the rug. On the 6th and even the day after, you saw a lot of prominent Republicans, people like Mitch McConnell, even Lindsey Graham, people who have, quite frankly, kissed Trump's ass his entire term. You saw them trying to distance themselves from the president, which, you know, in some ways it was a relief to know that, like, there is a bar, right? Like, I kind of thought that knowing that most of their voters are enthralled to Trumpism, that they would just keep defending him no matter what. But also, it was only one day later that Lindsey Graham came out and tweeted about how we all need to just forgive and have unity and move on. If it was leftists, if it was a crowd of predominantly activists of color, quote unquote, Antifa and BLM, the right would be encouraging Trump to become a dictator so that we could stamp out all threats of insurrection. Everything is backwards. You have many people on the left who believe in abolishing police, angry that police haven't arrested more people or that they didn't use more violence on civilians. You have the right encouraging, desecrating the Capitol, trying to overthrow our democracy. And then you have absolute monsters like Marco Rubio try and say that what's going on is about the hypocrisy of the left, who all summer claimed that a riot was the language of the unheard, but are saying that what happened on Wednesday was so horrible. How can you seriously try to defend what happened on Wednesday as racists were waving Confederate flags and making jokes about the Holocaust? How can you seriously try to both sides it by using a quote from Martin Luther King Jr.? Seriously? Fuck off. What really frustrates me is the fact that I see a lot of people, I think, assuming that things will go back to normal once Biden is elected, and especially once Trump is no longer president. Click the link to watch my last week's video where I basically talked about the same thing, just minus a coup. I really wish that people would understand that things will probably get worse, especially if we just try to sweep what happened under the rug. I'm very concerned about the fact that while the insurrectionists were in the Capitol, Biden released that statement where he basically sounded like a disappointed father.
The way is plain here too. That's who we are. It's the way of democracy, of respect, of decency, of honor.
The problem isn't a lack of decency. The problem isn't that an attempted coup is uncouth. The problem isn't that Trumpism makes America look bad. The problem is that Trumpism is bad. The problem is that fascism is bad. And trying to overthrow democracy is bad. You can't just push Trumpism back into the box. Pandora has opened it. It is done. I really feel like so many people are just not understanding the gravity of this moment. Something that I keep thinking about with a lot of Trumpers, many of them are operating on a different plane of reality. I keep thinking about my abusive ex who told me that the Holocaust never happened. And when I challenged him, he said that the Holocaust happened, but people weren't killed. What people call gas chambers were really just delousing showers. And that he knew this because he had a neighbor who was a Holocaust survivor. And when I told him that that wasn't true, his response was, "How do you know you weren't there?" Which, like, sure, I wasn't, but neither was he. When I tried to explain that the Holocaust actually happened, he said that I never think for myself, that the way I talk makes it clear that all I do is just swallow books and that I have no original thoughts and that I'm incapable of critical thinking. And so when I tried to, grab resources, pictures, books, history books, just everything that I showed him just helped to prove in his mind that my argument was invalid because I was relying on data, experts, because I couldn't use my own lived experience to prove something happened. That meant that my argument was completely invalid. When I tried to use logic and say, why would there be a conspiracy to make up the Holocaust? What would anyone gain from making up this giant, complicated plot to make up history and obscure facts and create a narrative, a false narrative that millions of people were murdered by the Nazis just for their religion, ethnicity, disability, or sexuality? He just said, because it's all something concocted by the deep state and you're so dumb you fell for it. What I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of Trump supporters right now who think very much like my ex did, where for whatever reason, they have bought into conspiracy theories. They have absorbed a lot of misleading and information and often outright lies. And at this point, there is basically nothing that you can say to convince them that Q isn't running some kind of 4D chess game trying to save the children. That there's basically nothing that you can't logic them out of their beliefs that the election was stolen. You can't rely on experts or data. Or those of us who don't believe in all of these conspiracies, and those that do, we are now basically operating on two different planes of reality. You can't just say, let's have unity, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to be able to work under the same understanding of the world again. These beliefs, they aren't going to go away, even if Trump is impeached, even if he's humiliated and he disappears from the public eye. It's been years that the news has basically caused me existential dread. But it's been extremely bad this week. And part of it is this sense of like, what can we do? It really feels like we are on the brink of a civil war, and that most of the people who have power to change how things are don't grasp the severity of the situation enough. You can't make fascism go away by just ignoring it and, starving it of attention the way you starve a fire of oxygen. Fascism, if you don't challenge fascists and show them that they will be met with overwhelming resistance, they feel emboldened to behave even worse, to hurt more people. Look, I'm struggling to come up with like a call to action. I like to have my videos feel like they're about encouraging people to do something. And in some ways, I really don't know what to do right now. I felt like I needed to make this video because this moment calls for it, because I'm so concerned about how it seems like so many people are handling this the wrong way. So really, I guess my very inadequate calls to action are that as terrifying as the news is right now, and as awful as things are, everyone needs to be paying attention. And obviously you should take breaks and take care of yourself and your mental health, but you also can't turn a blind eye, because things could get so much worse if we don't all do something. I really will be surprised if there isn't more acts of violence on Inauguration Day. So anyone who has money, please donate to local activists who are committed to standing up against fascists. If you feel like you can, stand with them. The more people who can physically show that we will not allow fascists to roam our streets and to try and overthrow our government, the more we'll be able to stop them. Obviously, that could be very dangerous, and I know that not everyone can do that kind of frontline work. And if you legitimately can't, that's absolutely okay. Try and find other ways to help. Donating to independent journalists, or organizing, following independent journalists and experts on the alt-right and fascism online on Twitter. I'm going to list some wonderful people to follow in case you aren't already. Work on community outreach and get involved in local organizations and taking care of the people around you. I also think that doing something, even if it's something small, is a way to help your existential dread at current events. It's way better to feel like you're working to change a problem than to just feel like you're a victim of a problem. One of the things that you can do is work on some emergency preparedness. Above is my link on a basic guide to prepping with mental illness. I am not an expert on the subject, but I do think that the video has some valuable information about some steps that you can take to make yourself feel more safe, and that can also ease some of your existential dread as well. I don't know how to end this because, well, I don't feel like I really reached a satisfying conclusion, or I'm filling anyone with hope or anything like I like to do. But for now, that's what I have to say. If you have worries, if you want to talk about all of this, please comment. And also you can tweet at me. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. Consider sharing it if you think that it would be helpful to anyone. I would really appreciate the extra visibility to my channel. As always, and especially now, please take care of yourselves. Until next time, bye.